Alrighty. Well, here we go. Um, I decided uh, the the shirt for this one is not high school related. Now it's the one of my newest fandoms, and that is Phoenix Rising. So, besides, if you're watching this from not Arizona, um, it's like triple digits for like 30 something odd days now, and it's when it gets to 115 degrees out, a nice lightweight jersey is just kind of the way to go. So anyway, uh, we are now removed from my wonderful venture into live 80s and classic rock concerts with the New Year's concert with REO and Journey. And this is, gosh, this is the NAU trip for my junior year, which a full, not spoiler alert, really in detail. That'll come in like 20 minutes. Um, but a shout out to the boss, to Wendy. Um, what she did for the choir on this trip, um, in terms of like our, in the professional world it'd be team building, but when you're a high school kid in choir, you just that it was a really neat thing what she did, and at the time I could tell it was important, but it's the years removed, uh and having still having them that are wild and very memorable to see. And when I was writing this, I was trying to figure out how much do I keep in, you know, like who would want to read in totality what someone might have written to me. And I think this is a part where I kind of funny enough I leaned on Hamilton a little bit. You know, there's a line in that musical of, the at the very end, you have no control, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And I think part of this, the overall arching part of my writing is to tell the adventures of people so close to me and how much they're loved and what they meant to me. Um, this was a portion of, at the time, me at 16, hearing a little bit of that back. And when writing this, and some of this is going to come out later, and it'll be a discussion that I will have. Um, as a teenager, you just don't know. You're going through so much that it's things like this that maybe make you stop and think and go, huh, oh, okay. And that's today. And it even starts off with the very first chapter, which I'm going to lovingly borrow a couple of lines from the band Styx. And so that's where we're going to go today. We are going to set our sights for NAU Year 2 in Teen Angst. That fucker. I've got dozens of friends, and the fun never ends. It was throughout this time that the newly found friends I had made began to make more of an impact on my life, and our friendships continued to grow because of them. Andrea L. was one such person, and her and I started to get to know each other through choir. Andrea was talented as absolute hell, had such a great sense of humor, and was not even 5 foot, garnering her the nickname Little One. She had been in Shantae the year before as a freshman, and was now in a cappella, and in the nicest way possible, she was like a bit of our mascot. She had this powerful voice that could blow you away, and we just got along very well. Her parents were usually involved in choir as well, either as boosters or chaperones or helping out with pre and post concert activities, so I got to know them too. and they were always cool people to be around. One of the things that struck me with Andrea, too, was how well our voices could meld together. We found out throughout the year that we could do amazing duets together, teaming together one day just to play around with the Green Day song Remembrance, which led us to singing in the song by Elton John and Kiki D, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, which we agreed to work on over the coming time to possibly try out for Pops. While this wouldn't happen junior year, we continued to sing together and practice, knowing our styles complemented each other so well. With her being in a cappella, it also meant we looked forward to going, on tour together. Just found a fun, kindred spirit with her. To this day, has always been one of the favorite friendships I cultivated because of choir. Matt P. and Jen had been friends of Putman's, and Jen was in band with Meg, Corey, and Aaron, continuing to bring the whole performing arts department as a friend building more into focus. Matt was in ROTC, and he, Putman, and I would get into fun, spirited debates about news stories, because Matt and I were both bit news junkies. So it wasn't uncommon to find us discussing things such as foreign policy after school, because trying to figure out how the world worked was just something we enjoyed doing. He was also a video gamer, and so that would bring him and Putman and I together at times, gaming and debating. Jen always had a smile or an eye roll for us, and she and I found common ground with horror movies along with cracking jokes on Putman. And at times, Matt would join in our war games with Zan, our gaming group continuing to grow, and my parents relished in us sprawled out on the floor or at a table with buildings and models, ordering pizza or burgers to feed the mass of teenage guys who were busy slaughtering each other, to notice that we'd nearly eaten everything in sight. Becky and I would spend time together with our joint love of professional wrestling, and since it was right around the time, core for us WWF Attitude Era fans, we would go to restaurants or sports bars, joined by Jessica, to watch the monthly WWF pay-per-views. It was a monthly tradition, going for food and fun, cheering on Stone Cold Steve Austin as he won the Royal Rumble in 2001, cheering on The Rock as he won the WWF title at No Way Out in February of the same year. We would do this for months, and would love to give each other grief if our wrestlers won or lost against each other. Even though wrestling has always been a love of mine, the time spent with Becky and Jessica for hours and just talking, laughing, and jokes were just outstanding memories, and I absolutely loved my time with the two of them. To this day, I can do nothing but smile when I think of them. Another friendship that really began to grow this year was with Sarah's best friend, Ashley R. Ashley was tall, blonde, and never, ever took shit from anyone. She could fire back with wit that would sometimes just stun me and Putman into absolute silence. She also gave great hugs. She loved to flirt with us, and I would happily flirt back. It would not be uncommon for her to come over and hang out with Sarah as Hanson and Garbage, No Doubt, and other music would echo from the room, and they would sing along, and then she would pop over to my room and sit on my lap and flirt and ask about my day, much to my sister's chagrin. Ashley and I bonded over horror movies, her favorites being the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and this would cause a series of debates as I would champion Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees as being the superior slasher character, creating some lovingly loud arguments between the two of us. Ashley, though, would catch the eye of Putman from time to time, and even Blaine, something that always made me laugh, watching the interconnectedness of our group continue. Sarah would roll her eyes and would plead with me at times to not date her friend. She was worried Ashley had a crush on me, and I would swoop in. Listen, Ashley and I were very open that we absolutely found each other wonderful and attractive, but we didn't even approach the subject then. But we always kept our relationship close. At the very least, she was an adopted sister, much like Tammy. And in Sarah's worst case scenario, she could be a future girlfriend. But I think a lot of the time, Ashley and I had more fun giving Sarah something to complain about than really entertaining the idea of dating. But we never counted it out either. What I've got is full stock of thoughts and dreams that scatter, and you pull them all together. Coming back from the New Year break, it felt like there were some continued fun in the air. In choir, Robert had joined Downbeat as a bass, and Scott had moved on to being a tenor. American Studies with Emily had probably become my favorite non-choir class, while Science with Meg and Corey was a close second. I was still emailing or calling Adrian, talking to her about the group, the current state of flux that I had been with my feelings for Meg, and she filled in how Kansas had been. Emily and I had continued hanging out, spending time at her house and mine. We'd spent time at her place watching MST3K, watching movies at mine, doing homework, and working on projects from German class to American Studies, peppering in some singing of both choir songs and just songs we liked. It was just us, being a pair of pals. Then, to add just a little bit more adventure and confusion, there was everything that happened with Meg on New Year's Eve, and I had felt a little bit confident when I thought about asking her to coronation. Meg, would you like to go to coronation with me? I asked, a little bit of excitement and hope. Coronation's girl-ass guy, isn't it? She asked. I don't know, actually, I responded. I'd always done the asking in the past. I think it's girl-ass guy this year, she responded. And I'm not sure if I'm going, or with who, just yet. Oh, I said, and my confidence began to erode. I know we had a great time at New Year's, and I still love hanging out with you. I've just not decided yet, she said. I promise when I do, you'll know. Oh, okay, I responded. With the idea that coronation was girl-ass guy, or at least that's what Meg's reasoning was, all of a sudden, I got hit with a bit of further confusion. I didn't want to just be stuck waiting, but I also wasn't sure who else might be following the same mindset. Which also meant I may just have to play the wait-and-see game. One that, by this point, I was getting really somewhat good at. Just standing around and waiting. Because at this point, I felt that I had been pretty upfront about my feelings for people. But when it came to any sort of return, I still felt in the dark. Or at least, I was fucking horrible at reading signals. And which, let me just say, at this point, to any readers/listeners who may ever waffle on the idea of telling someone they have feelings for them, just do it. Like sweet fucking hell. One of the things I have learned through conversations with friends, coworkers, students through the years, when it comes to things like this, guys can be fucking dumb when it comes to signals. If you don't tell us flat out what you are feeling, we won't pick up on it. And especially during this time, I was so set that if anyone felt anything about me, they would say something. Let me just climb off my soapbox here and get back to whatever the fuck was going on. So that little wonderful thing called time had begun to rear its head again, and I was beginning to feel a little backed into a wall when it came to making plans for coronation. But that was also because the choir was beginning to get busy too. We had a joint concert with the Centennial on February 2nd, and then on February 8th, Downbeat was headed up to NAU for the annual NAU Jazz Madrigal competition. As was also seemingly customary, coronation fell on the same weekend as well. And by this point, I had decided that if I was going, I would just go alone and figure it out when I got there. As the final week of January arrived, and the concert was at the end of the week, Meg asked if I wanted to go get something to eat after school. We jumped in her car and off we went for dinner. And during our conversation, it had turned to where we were as friends, a possible couple, whatever have you. She stood by the fact that she still wasn't sure about being a couple, but she knew I was important to her, and she was important to me. Some of the confusion, though, came from the fact that we continued to do things together, like hang out with Corey and her boyfriend, going down to Mill Avenue to look at shops and have lunch, holding hands as we did so. The quartet of us would also go to the Renaissance Festival, where Meg helped me pick out a knife that she thought would be great as a zombie-fighting character object alongside my crowbar. So we continued to have felt this love for each other, but it didn't seem there was just something holding us back from the commitment one would see in like a finalized relationship or the high school version of it. So it was here that I just asked about Coronation again. I told you it's girl-ass guy, she said. I know, but I do plan to go, and I know it's the weekend you're at NAU. So I have someone in mind to ask, she said. A part of me froze. Oh. Oh, yeah, okay. I know you'll probably get back before the dance, though, right? Do you plan to go? She asked. I mean, I haven't been asked, but yeah, I responded, though admittedly a bit of wind had been taken out of my sails. Can I save a dance for you? She asked, sensing the shift in my state. I would love that, I responded. You ready to go? Yeah, let's get going, she replied. We got back into the car and began driving back to my place, still talking. We pulled up to a light, and I was looking out the window while a silence fell over the conversation. Can I ask you a question? She asked. Yeah, of course, I responded. Matt, she started and then paused. Would you go to prom with me? My neck cracked as I looked into her as I turned to her direction. I'm sorry, what? Would you go to prom with me? She asked, smiling. Oh, yeah, I said, the question she was asking me dawning on me. I would love to. Meg grabbed my hand. I'm so glad. So wait, what about Coronation? You said you had someone in... I stopped, mid-sentence. I was almost going to be an idiot, but I caught myself. Oh! Yeah, she said, still smiling. Listen, I know things are what they are with us, and if anything changes, I want us to be understanding, but I really know that we would have so much fun at prom, and I can't think of anyone else I'd want to go with. So, one of the things about Meg at this time, and actually one of the things that would be a cause of some of our disagreements, was Meg didn't plan much ahead or be late to things. She was a spontaneous spirit, which was both exciting but also sometimes, for someone like me, who was early to everything, it was something I'd struggle with. So, the fact that here she was, nearly 3.5 months early, to ask me to prom, just blew me away. I flipped between happy and surprised and then shook my head. I'm sorry, can I have a second? I asked. Oh, yeah? She said. I stuck my head out the window and let out the loudest woohoo I could, and Meg immediately burst into laughter. I brought my head back into the car, smiling. I know you'll get back late from NAU, so does it work if we just meet at Coronation? She asked. Yeah, absolutely. Have you picked out a dress? I asked. I have, and I already have one in mind for prom. Oh, shit. Okay. What color for coronation? Black and gold. And prom? A bit of a surprise, but I think you'll love the color, she said. Okay, I said, an idiot grin spreading across my face. Holy shit, we're going to prom. Honestly, during this moment, I didn't give a fuck about any sort of confusion, fluidity, what are we doing conversations. I was on cloud like 9. We went back to my house for a little while and hung out, and the idiot grin was still firmly planted on my face. The next day, during lunch, we walked to the school bookstore to buy coronation tickets, where Meg, finally, officially asked me to go with her. Away. Feels weird not singing it, but you know. The pre-concert ritual for the joint spring concert with the middle school of the Time Warp went without a problem, and the tech crew was joined by Sherry S., who, along with her brother Ron, had really ingrained themselves with our group during Halloween. The team of myself, David, Zan, Putman, and Sherry got everything ready to go for the concert, which kicked off with Downbeat singing a couple of songs, the Madrigal set we were taking with us up to NAU. We also did our jazz set, which came with a song entitled Chili Con Carne, in which we all utilized our microphones for the upbeat jazz tune. The 8th grade choir followed, along with Shantae, Sarah, and Ashley with chorale and a cappella. All the choirs got together for the finale, The Storm is Passing Over, in which we got to mingle our choirs with the 8th graders. As mentioned, we never did get to do our Downbeat doo-wop selections, and I truly believe this would have been the perfect concert for it, but understood that this was also the warm-up concert for us before Jazz Madrigal, so it remained on the cutting room floor. The following week, as NAU was coming quickly since we would be leaving on Thursday, the 8th, it meant getting any schoolwork done and collected, or done early before leaving. This meant research papers and labs and whatever else needed. Amanda had agreed to help Emily and I take any notes from American Studies, and Corey and Meg would do the same for the science class. Meg and I finalized our plans, or any pressing needs for coronation, and when we all got ready to leave that Thursday, she and Xandar saw me off. So, Matt, what's going on with you and Meg, huh? Scott asked me as we loaded the vans. Like, are you guys dating now, or what? It's more, or what, I replied. I mean, I feel like we like each other. It's just sometimes we are and sometimes we aren't. But she asked me to prom. And what did you say? Stephen asked. I mean, I said yes, I replied. But she said if anything changes. What do you mean? David asked. I guess if we were to be dating other people, I said, packing the last of the luggage into one of the vans. But when we get back down here, we're going to coronation, so one thing at a time, I guess. We climbed into the vans, and our van was Brandon and Kate and Emily, Rob, David, Stephen, and myself, along with Mr. Werner. Everyone else was in the van with Wendy for the drive up, and Brandon and Stephen sat behind Werner, then Emily and Kate with me and David in the back. I brought a notebook to work on stories and homework, or letters, and as we got ready to go, Stephen gave Mr. Werner a CD of the a cappella group Inside Out for the drive. They had come through our choir once. Much like Sound Bites the year before, we had enjoyed their songs, and Stephen had bought 2 of their albums and brought them along for the trip. As we drove up, and would sing along with the songs we would know, laugh at the songs that had a fun comedic energy, or just listen while we chatted. Brandon had been chatting with Mr. Werner, and he had a past with him. He'd been around band and orchestra before, and at one point, for whatever reason, Brandon had started waving his boxers around the van. At one point, though, it got a little too close to Mr. Werner's face and vision for comfort, so Werner grabbed a pair, rolled down the window, and stuck them out. He rolled the window up as the boxers flapped in the wind of the freeway, and we burst out laughing. "When you sit down, I will pull them back in," he said deadpan to Brandon, while we howled with laughter. As this happened, The Lion Sleeps Tonight began to play on the CD player, and we all began singing along. Having a blast with the lyrics, we even shared a bit of a laugh at Brandon. The "We a Mum Away" at one point replaced with "Brandon's undies will blow away." And even the usually stoic Mr. Werner cracked a smile and laugh as we continued. When the song was over, he pulled the boxers back in, handed them to Brandon, who at this point was red in the face and laughing, quickly zipping up his clothes back into his bag. Anyone else have any other dirty laundry they want to air out? Mr. Werner asked from the driver's seat, and our laughter got louder. I could hide out under there. Upon arrival in NAU and getting settled, the rooms were broken up by sections again. Robert, David, and I settled into our room, and I deferred the 2 beds in the bedroom to the seniors, taking the couch. We had all done something pretty basic for dinner, and the plan was to go into the first day of the festival well rested for madrigals. Our madrigal set, a repeat of 3 songs we just did for some of the concerts, went well and without a hitch. After performing and the opportunity for the yearly pictures, we went back to the hotel and changed. We then all piled into the vans to head off to the annual trip of the Chapel of the Rock. And Wendy mentioned she had something planned for everyone. When we got there, however, Scott had twisted his ankle, so we had gotten a wheelchair to push him up the walk to the top of where the church was located. We had gotten permission, as usual, to sing in the church, and I brought along the pitch pipe Wendy had gifted to me. We settled in with the usual Adoramus Te and stood in a circle, singing to the small group of people who happened to be there, but really, more for us. We had walked around a little bit more, taking in the sights, and it was fun to share it with Emily and Kate, who had missed out on it the year before, and those of us who'd been there loved seeing the reactions of everyone seeing it for the first time. We all came together at Wendy's call, and she and Mr. Werner began to hand out a series of manila envelopes to everyone, each with our name on it. "The instructions are inside, but I want everyone to open them and read it," Wendy said. "Take some time." We all stared at the envelopes and started to open them, and inside was a packet. The front page with some information about the trip, the names of the choir, and who were seniors and juniors. Wendy included a letter on the front page addressing it "Dear Downbeat Friends," and explaining the packet was inspired by writings written in love and friendship, asking for us to find a spot, either with people or on our own, to write a letter to ourselves, what she called therapy for the human spirit. She signed it, "Love always, Wendy," and explained each packet had a letter from her and a letter from someone who cared about us. I found the same spot that a year before Katie and Pam had taken my picture, and I pulled the packet out. Inside were a few envelopes, and the first one I opened was a handwritten letter from Wendy. "Dear Matt" was written in blue, and then she changed it to purple. "I feel that switching pen colors on you is the perfect way to define our personalities. We often change color depending on how we react to different situations. I admire the fact that you can mold to the situation and not explode. I've seen a major change in your musical ability and personality this year. You are a wonderful leader. You never yell or make rude remarks to your fellow peers. You work hard, ask questions, and communicate situations better than anyone in class. I feel that your honesty and opinion are fabulous. It shows extreme intelligence and critical thinking skills. You're a very smart man. This can often be frustrating when ignorance is displayed. Continue to think before you speak. Remember to always stand your ground and explore new ideas. Continue your musical talents. Your learning curve is quite huge. Your ability to memorize, sing both tenor and bass, and critically analyze musical detail. You have to keep going. I'm not worried about you. You will go far in life. I'm very proud of you. Stay strong. Maintain control. Sincerely, Wendy." I looked up from the letter and caught Wendy looking at me, and we smiled. I mouthed, "Thanks, boss," and she nodded back. I went back to the large envelope and pulled out a plain, white, letter-sized envelope with my name written in the handwriting of my dad. I opened it and found a typed letter. Dear Matt, it started. As you and the rest of Downbeat are taking a break from the NAU Jazz Festival trip, we wanted to share with you some thoughts. First, we want you to know that we are very grateful to God for blessing us with you as our son. You help to make our family complete. You are everything that parents could hope for in a son, and we are enjoying watching you grow into a fine adult. We are very pleased to see how you have embraced music by your participation in choir. You have such a wonderful gift with your singing ability. It is clear that you work hard and with the dedication to be the best vocalist you can be. When you are singing, whether in your room or when performing, the joy on your face and enthusiasm in your voice is contagious. You continue to bring such joy and pleasure to those who listen to you. I shifted on the wall I was sitting on, still reading. We watch you bright and early and cheerful every morning in order to be on time and ready for Downbeat rehearsals. Your willingness to learn and provide tech support to concerts has shown your sense of responsibility to the work of the whole choir. You reveal a deep sense of caring and commitment to your choir companions, and you provide not only tech support and vocal harmony, but a listening ear and willing hand to help out wherever you are needed. It was fun to watch you not only prepare for regionals, but to listen to you talk about the experience and how you heard and incorporated the judges' feedback and affirmations into your personal style. We appreciate and enjoy how you share your choir stories and experiences with us. Music has always been important to you, from directing the church choir in Woodhall when you were so very young, to bebopping to the 50s and 60s tunes when we lived in Yuma, and now you're into the rock music of the 1980s, giving your parents the excuse now to sneak into your room when you're away so we can rock down and boogie. Our hopes for you are that you will continue to enjoy being in choir, and the joy of singing and friendships you will make grow deeper and even more special. And we hope that you will continue to allow the learning, the practices, the performances, and the feedback to mold and shape you into being the best person you can be. You're an amazing young man, Matt. We are so very proud of you for who you are, for your enjoyment in life, your hopes, your dreams, and all of your accomplishments. Thank you for sharing yourself and your music with us. We love you. It was signed by my mom, who added a smiley face and some X's and O's. And my dad, who wrote, "Made you say underwear, grin." This is a callback to the song that shares this chapter, where my dad had caught me off guard with a lyric from the song Pinch Me by the Bare Naked Ladies. He had been talking with me while we were driving and asked me to get something for him under there. And I asked, underwear. And just a few moments later, the song gave the lines, "We can hide out under there. I just made you say underwear." And my dad grinned, and I laughed. And seeing it here, written on the letter, just made me smile. I looked up from the letter, and the rest of the choir, most were finishing up their own packets, and I wrote a quick letter to myself. I spoke of being unsure of choir when I first started, that I had been afraid of everyone and not exactly confident, but that had changed because of the people I met. Without the choir and the friends I made, I would have given up a long time ago. And with them I found a sense of strength and love and devotion. I was inspired by them, and I had found a family with them. As I finished writing, immediately I caught the eyes of Emily and Kate, who had finished their letters in their own writing, and I found perfection in that moment. Of course, it was the two of them. my longest friends I'd had at that point, and we were all there together. We walked to each other, Emily and I hugging first, and then I hugged Kate, and we waited for the rest of choir, a sense of bonding between us all. Wendy had us all come together for a photo, one that the only copy I ever saw was a grainy black and white copy put into the choir yearbook. Robert is laid out on the ground, Burt Reynolds style in front, Scott in a wheelchair, David, Becky, Tamara, Wendy, Shell, and Tati on the bench. Laura and Liz holding up their L sign, and Brian has their arms around him. In the back are Stephen and Brandon, then Kate with her arms stretched around them, and then resting on my back. And there's me and Emily, an arm around each other, and all smiles. Just like the year before, another reminder that even though sometimes the people can change, the family still remains. On the drive back, we were still riding our highs. David and Stephen rode in the back, then Brian and Shell, Emily and Kate, and me up front with Wendy. Wendy turned on the radio as Terrence Trent D'Arby's song Wishing Well started, and I started singing along. A little quiet at first, but Wendy urged me on. "Yeah, okay, Matt, here you go," she said, smiling. I kept singing along, leaning back in the chair against the window. As it moved to the chorus, Wendy joined me on the next chorus round. A few more voices joined in, some of us in harmony. When the song was over, I looked at Wendy and smiled. "You know, I think we could have some fun with some 80s songs," I said. "Just an idea." I took my troubles down to Madame Ruth. After getting back from the trip to the chapel and having dinner together, we all went to the host concert that NAU put on, including their women's chorale, men's chorale, Shrine of the Ages choir, and the judges of the event had their own little singing group just for kicks, and they were going to be putting on a show for all the schools in attendance. Much like the year before, this allowed us to see the college choral programs in action and then a professional singing group. But it became memorable for all the wrong reasons. We got into the concert, we got seated, and I found myself between Wendy and Emily. Everyone else stretched down the aisle, and we got situated, the concert kicking off with 2 numbers from the women's chorale, then 2 more from the men's chorale, including Love Potion number 9, which was warmly received by the audience. And then, as the Shrine of Ages choir came out, they announced that they would be doing 2 pieces from Randall Thompson, including 2 pieces from Americana, the first being The Sublime Process of Law Enforcement. It was here where one of the oddest, alarming, and maybe even, for lack of a better term, terrifyingly weird things I've ever seen happen in a performance setting. The song, a 7-minute piece, is all in minor chords and done in almost horror movie style, detailing the execution of 4 criminals. Their crimes of murder and the like are told, the Undertaker being unprepared for the amount of criminals being put to death, the effects of the gas chamber on them, and how they stared outside their cells at the coffins waiting for them. The song starts just from the get-go on what seems to be the wrong foot, and as soon as the opening chords hit, it seemed like everyone jumped. Emily grabbed my arm, and I looked over at her. As I looked down the road as the song continued, I could see all of Downbeat with the same looks on their face. Just shock, disgust, somewhat fearful. I looked at Wendy, who was wide-eyed. Werner was not his stoic self either, looking at Wendy and then the rest of us. Other high school choirs were the same way. And I held Emily's hand. I looked over at Wendy and leaned in. "I'm sorry, but what the hell is this?" I asked. "Listen, I'm a horror guy, but this is just weird." Wendy shook her head. "I don't know." And the thing is, the story just goes. There's a portion where it just goes silent. You think it's over, and then they go right back into this screeching about one of the condemned men seeing his now dead brother placed in a casket before him as a bit of psychological torture before he is taken to the gas chamber. And as it builds and builds with screeching voices and the impending death, the song just ends, and they jumped to the next part, a song called Lovely Linus. A complete tonal shift, and when it happens, an absolutely uncomfortable laugh came from the crowd. Emily's grip on my hand relaxed, but did not let go. "Are you okay?" I whispered. She shook her head. I squeezed her hand, and she leaned in. "I will be." "That song was weird," I whispered back. When the choir was done, we applauded out of respect, but Wendy was standing looking at us. "Intermission is 15 minutes. If you need to, take a walk," she said. Most of us left the auditorium, and there were murmurs between us and the other choirs, but it was with Brian that I found a bit of a likewise reaction to the song. We stepped out of the auditorium and into the bathroom, and we broke one of the 2 basic rules of the men's room etiquette. No talking. "What did you think of the song?" I asked. "I don't know, but I hated it," he responded. "What the fuck was that?" I asked. We both just seemed ticked off about it. "Just seems like a bad song for the audience," he said as we washed our hands. Yeah, that, man. Inappropriate would be the word," I agreed. We continued talking about it for a few minutes, and it seemed to be the overall consensus of the group. David agreed with us. Mr. Werner seemed to as well. The story of condemned murderers in the gas chamber and executions were probably not the best song choice for a group of high school students. As we made our way back to the auditorium, I took my place beside Wendy and leaned in. "Please promise me we'll never do that song," I said. "Never," was her response. "And I'm guessing not something I should try out for Pop's concert?" I asked, adding a grin. "Would be the last song you ever did in choir," she laughed. Emily came back and with Kate and sat next to me. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, weird song," she replied. "Fucking weird." She slid her arm around mine, and the lights flickered, signaling the next half of the concert would begin. Just for Kicks took the stage. We enjoyed their jazz selections. However, even they seemed to take a bit of energy out of the room at one point, as during one jazz song, each individual performer did a 4 or 5 minute solo vocal improvisational opportunity. Just yikes. Not that it didn't show skill, but at one point we all looked at each other, at other choirs, and everybody was starting to either zone out or fall asleep. By the time they had reeled it back in, it seemed like everybody was ready for the concert to be over. When it did, we all piled back into our van, agreeing to meet at the lobby of the hotel before going to our rooms. As we all gathered when we got back, Wendy didn't even hide anything. "Okay, that sucked," she said. It was a perfectly candid moment from our director, and it was the one that we all needed. "I know I said room checks were as soon as we got back, but I'm going to give you guys like an hour. You want to sit and chat, run and get a soda or a snack, go ahead. But we got jazz tomorrow, so don't stay up too late." It was just all weird. We didn't really hang out too much, just sort of all sat around to decompress. I walked and got a soda, asking if anyone else needed anything, and remembered the year before of late nights up and root beer runs. There was no vocal journal on this trip, but I walked the hallway a bit more, saying goodnight to each of the rooms, then headed back to base camp. You know, Robert and David. They were already getting ready for bed. I laid on the couch, turned on the TV, putting the entire weird, but yet cool and bonding day to an end. When your mouth gets full of fire, you might need something to drink. As NAU Jazz Band went on to its second and final day, we moved on to our jazz set, which would include the song Chili con Carne, one that we were going to have fun with. Before leaving the hotel, I made sure to time warp. We did a few short practices in one of the meeting rooms, and after our performance and judges' critique workshop, we'd be changing and on the road back home. Our jazz set was good, but Chili was our favorite piece. Brandon had inserted some comedy with "Ooh, tastes like chicken," At a section, the ladies' rhythm was seriously on fire with this song, and me, Robert, and David had fun hitting bass notes while the tenors had facial expressions that could kill. So as we prepared, we were ready for microphones and merriment. "Okay, everyone, you ready?" Wendy asked. We all nodded in agreement and went on stage, receiving the courteous applause of other choirs. As was customary, as high schools would, of course, love to compete with each other, but we were also all in it together. Our friendly rivalry with Corona, Wendy's school she had been a student at and student teacher, was also in full effect through the weekend, as we would perform close to their sets as well, and we had fun with a bit of friendly talk, both trash and serious, back and forth. As we hit the stage and had our mics, we immediately launched into Chili, and our judge stood up. "No, no, no," he said. "Can we do it without the mics? We don't want any more microphones. Soloists only." We all stopped, and Wendy looked at us, her eyes wide and a bit of a smirk face she made when something unexpected happened, and mouthed, "Okay, mics down." I was a bit more frank, mouthing, "What the fuck?" We unplugged the mics, and I collected them all, still a tech guy at heart, and put a mic on the mic stand for soloists. Wendy gave me the eye, a note, which I blew into the pitch pipe, and we were off and running. We recovered well, and the Taste Just Like Chicken line got laughs and positive comments during our critique. Our critique, in fact, was complimentary. We were one of the best groups of the event. And our judge explained that he had told the choirs before us not to use the microphones, and that's why he cut us off. He realized we'd been pulled for practice and had not heard the announcement, apologizing for the abrupt interruption, but he wanted to maintain it going forward. After receiving our critiques, we left the stage and all ducked into restrooms to change for the drive back to Phoenix. "Well, that was interesting," I said to David as he and I stepped out of the men's room and walked up to Wendy. "Hey boss, wild trip, huh?" "You're not wrong," she replied. With everyone changed, we hopped into our vans and started the drive back down to Phoenix. Music and singing part of the adventure as I sat and wrote, taking time to talk to Emily or David, Kate, and Laura on the drive back. Much like the year before, though, my mind on the drive would focus on Coronation, and that's exactly the dance, and what exactly the dance and the night had planned for me. As we pulled into Mountain Point a few hours before the dance, I grabbed my suitcase and started the walk home. When I got there, I called Meg to let her know I was there. She said she was finishing getting ready and was excited to see me, and we set our meeting spot in front of the school. I hung up the phone and turned to my closet, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to wear. And with that, NAU Year 2 is over. Like I said, leading into it, this was one of those things where those letters from Wendy and my folks, I still have. I scanned them. I might input them into the video just there. No, it's one of those funny things of, my dad and I have a very similar sense of humor, and as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to be like when I'm with like a parent, or oh my gosh, I'm becoming my parents. And then I got older and I was like, haha, okay, well, I mean, at least somebody gets my jokes. So it's also why the Bare Naked Lady song is like one of those that I always carry with me, because I always think of my dad. But performing is done, and not the interruption of us that we got from our judge at NAU. His name's Kirby Shaw, and in the land of choral arrangements, when it comes to like choirs, he had done so many arrangements. Like, he had almost become this like pop star to us. Like, Brandon was so excited he was going to be our judge. It just became this thing. Like, we were just cheering him during the concert before, and then this happened, and it just like shut everything off, and it, to plant this, for later, I have seen Wendy since. I saw her last year. She remembered to the detail that event. And she remembered Kirby Shaw cutting us off and what he said, and she was just like, everybody's reaction was perfect because, you know, Becky and Tamara and Kate were just like, okay, well, we'll get the singing done, but who is this guy? Brandon looked heartbroken that Kirby Shaw was like a just he was just being what he was, and my reaction of, well, fuck this guy, was just kind of like all wrapped up together, and that's just being high schoolers, and it's communication stuff, you know. And that's why I had to put it in. It was, yeah, during our thing he explained, like, I told all the choirs not to use mics and then realized that you weren't here, so I could see why that might have thrown you off, but you didn't. It didn't bother you. But it is, like I mentioned, it's funny how little memories like that become something that you remember. Also, I am not linking it, but if you ever want to look up that, you know, Americana piece, by all means do it. But it's weird, and when I wrote this and allowed a couple people to read it, one said person who was there just remembered how weird and freaky of a song it was. So, you know, music is great until you have some like weird aversion to a song, and then you're just like, get it out of my head. Not the earwig you want. Anyway, my rambling is over for now. I've actually, wow, okay, I'm almost hitting an hour on some of these videos. So if you have made it through all of this in one sitting, thank you so much. You have earned yourself a drink of your choice. Put it on my tab. I will see you next time. As always, please remember, be good to yourself and keep on rolling.